Ever wonder how devastating a fight between two dreadnoughts can be? Well, in the book Angel Exterminatus, we see these powerhouses go at it during an all-out brawl and flurry between the Emperor's children, the Iron Hands, and the Iron Warriors. A dreadnought, one marked with rank bars, his internal database identified as a warsmith, no less. Bombastus strode through the mass of fighting, ignoring everything else in his path, as he fought to reach the one opponent that might challenge him. The heavier machine moved with a ponderous grace, its waist, gimbal moving in dimensions his could not. Its hammer arm was crackling and lethal, but its main gun was silent.
"No ammunition!"
roared Bombastus, though the words were only rendered as text on the interface of his casket visor. He could no longer hear the bellowed challenge. The dreadnought turned to face him, and Bombastus read the flurry of activations through its armored shell. Automated weapons, loaders sought and failed to find ammunition in the rear-mounted hoppers. Bombastus sprayed the warsmith dreadnought with a wash of blazing promethium, dousing its carapace from head to foot. He knew the damage would be minimal, but humiliation was the first part of killing. He loosened an impudent blast of bolter fire across the carapace. Most of the rounds ricocheted, but one lucky shell caromed from the upper edge of its carapace and blasted the chunk of armor plating free. Sparks flared from the tantalizing tear in its upper surfaces, a wound to be torn wider. Then the time for guns was over, and the two dreadnoughts slammed together with a noise like starships colliding. A fight between dreadnoughts was not a subtle affair of feints, counters, and riposte. It was a brutal, tearing, barging, grappling, where the victor was the war machine that offered the fewest openings to its foe. The Iron Warrior's dreadnought was the heavier machine, but Bombastus quickly realized he had the edge in experience. Whoever had been interred in this burnished sarcophagus was a recent implantee. His skill and knowledge of the weapon's balance and moves available to him limited by his lack of experience. A thunderous uppercut paralyzed his enemy's cannon arm, tearing out the vulnerable servos beneath the curve of its shoulder guards. A body blow rocked Bombastus, but he rode the force of it, spinning around and stepping in to deliver a punishing ram. A hammer blow pummeled his upper carapace, and a dozen damage indicators flared to life on his casket visor.
"Your height and weight advantage," he bellowed. "I will not forget that again."
Bombastus pushed hard, slamming his fist down on the dreadnought's frontal section and driving it back. Momentum was the key, pounding blows raining down one after another. Bombastus caught a flicker of motion to his side, but ignored it as its auspex registered a lone legionary, an Iron Warrior, but one without any discernible weapons capable of causing damage. Once again, he pummeled the dreadnought, breaking its armor open and exposing areas a dreadnought ought never to expose. Pinkish fluid and steaming oil poured from his foe's carapace. Its machine lifeblood, a sudden threat indicator, spiked Bombastus' rear as his auspex detected a thermal bloom from a damage-capable weapon. The dreadnought was still reeling, no threat for now, so Bombastus spun around to his central axis, feeding shells into the breech of his bolter. Overkill for a single warrior, but immensely satisfying. The Melt-a-Blast took Bombastus in the center of his casket, instantly vaporizing the ablative layers of ceramite and melting through the inches of armor protecting the fleshy remains that empowered his battlefield divinity. Bombastus' mind screamed within his fluid-filled sarcophagus as life-preserving gels boiled and delicate biosynaptic receptors were flash-burned in an instant. His motor spasmed in response to his agonies, and his body tilted on the axis as he spun back around. The Iron Warrior's dreadnought's hammer pistoned directly into the ruin of his casket, crushing the last remains of Bombastus to a pink mulch smeared on the inner face of an empty shell. He did not fall. His body was too immense and too heavy simply to topple over. Instead, he sagged with his arms limp at his side, stinking biofluids pouring from his ruptured sarcophagus.
"Gratitude,"
said Berosus, his augmenters crackling and gaped with interference. "I am your loyal bondsman," said Cadaris Grindel, turning the meltagun over in his hands with a newfound admiration.